I went on reality TV when I was 20.
My guest today is Frankie Gaff.
Why make someone else rich when you can make yourself rich?
You may recognize Frankie from her time on Made in Chelsea.
Until the last year, I have never answered anything to do with that show.
What's your biggest advice?
My advice would be,
What was the biggest mistake you made?
I wish I'd worked harder.
Knowing everything you know now, would you still go on the reality TV show?
I feel like you have to be willing to not be a good person.
But since leaving in 2018, she's built a huge following through her authenticity and transparency about her life, and particularly motherhood.
And I purposely didn't go to mum.
Are there any horror stories in working with a brand?
I didn't get to see the product until the day of the shoot.
Is there something you had to let go in order to thrive?
This is probably something that a lot of influencers feel the same about, but it's
Ooh, watch this space. Welcome to Unboxed. I'm your host, Connie Nam, the founder of Astrid Miyu. In these conversations, I speak to founders, investors, and creators who are all breaking boundaries in their space to discover the person behind the brand and what it took for them to build their empires. Hey, Frankie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to my studio. Welcome to Unboxed.
Thank you for having me. It's so nice.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been such a long time.
I know.
So you're now a successful content creator, but you were on reality TV show.
I
and
was.
You're famous for that. Tell me a bit about that and how that, I guess, helped you or hindered you.
So I went on reality TV when I was 20, and it all kind of happened very quickly. I was at university at the time, and it was never something I thought I would ever do. I wasn't shy, but I was quite a reserved, I don't know, private person. But it came about because I was outside of the show dating someone who was on the show. And it kind of got to a point where he was like, well, this is my life, this is what I do, it's supposed to be real, so it wouldn't make sense if you didn't come on the show. So it's something I thought about for a while, because obviously I was studying, and I was also, I just couldn't imagine myself doing it. Anyway, ended up doing it because he was very persuasive, and also my parents, which was really interesting. I thought they would be like, absolutely no way, like, you're doing your degree, we spent loads of money on your education, you're not gonna throw that away and just go on TV, blah, blah, blah. But they weren't like that at all. They were like, yeah, do it. It could be amazing. It's such a great opportunity. So yeah, I went on TV and I did that for 2 years. Yeah, from that, I obviously grew my following, and that's how I came to being a content creator.
How did being on TV help you become a content creator? And what was that switch like from being a reality TV star to being your own, I guess, like boss as a content creator?
So I obviously grew my following from being on TV. It was amazing exposure. Yeah, that's how I got onto my following. It then came to a point where I just wasn't enjoying the reality TV anymore. I just think it wasn't really for me. I obviously had my relationship on there, and that came to an end. And then I kind of said to myself, oh, maybe this will be easier when I'm not in a relationship, because then I'm not as invested. I can see it as more as a job. Like, it obviously is great exposure, and it's kind of what I've chosen to do now, so I might as well make the most of it. Yeah, I did it for a couple months, not being in a relationship, thinking it would be easier, but I just couldn't enjoy it, and I decided to make that decision and leave. And I'm really glad I did that. And at the time I was with an agency, and we kind of put this sort of PR plan together of how we were going to do it. And yeah, we made the jump. I think because I was so young, I didn't overthink it too much. I was just kind of like, it will be fine. Because I think I was 22 or 23 when I left.
That's the best attitude in jumping into something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not knowing too much, not thinking too much.
Yeah, I think if this was now, I would overthink it, because I would be like, well, what am I going to do? I've got bills, I've got a child, I've got, all these things. So I think because I was young, it made a really easy decision for me. And because I had an agency at the time as well, we had this sort of plan, and we kind of spoke of what we were going to do and how we were going to sort of play it out and what this meant moving forward. My thing in my head was I really wanted to rebrand myself. I wanted to move away from being known as a reality TV person and more into that sort of content creator, influencer space, because I really feel like at the time, the brands that were working with the reality TV girls were not the same brands that were working with the influencers. And the brands that were working with the influencers were the brands that I felt like aligned more with me than the jobs that I was doing when I was on Made in Chelsea. So I really sort of wanted to rebrand myself. And that took about 6 months of saying no to the work and the brands that didn't align with me and that I didn't want to carry on working with moving forward.
What gave you that strength to say no? Because it must have been so tempting to say yes to all these like contracts. And you've done such an amazing job in making that shift, by the way.
Thank you. I think, again, because I was young, and the agency I was with at the time, it was a model agency with a talent board. And I feel like because they had so many people and I wasn't like there, I don't think they really cared about, saying no to this money because they had all these other things going on. So it helped that they were like, yeah, just do what you want kind of thing. And again, because I think I was young and I didn't have so many financial obligations at the time. I just needed to cover my rent and that was kind of it. I think I felt like I could do it and I just kept thinking about the bigger picture. And I was lucky that it didn't take that long. So this is really interesting because when I was on Made in Chelsea, I didn't work with Astrid Miyu. And I remember it being on like my brand hit list because I think I saw you working with maybe Chloe Lloyd.
Yeah.
And maybe Lydia Millen.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I want to work with them. I like their jewelry. And you guys were part of that thought process of like taking myself out of that reality TV box and really going for that more influencer.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, and we've been working ever since.
Yeah.
Long-term partners.
Yeah.
So for people that want to make a pivot in their personal branding, what's your biggest advice? Because Made in Chelsea is such a strong brand to get away from, isn't it?
Oh my goodness. It is. And I got myself away from it, but even when I would go to events or whatever, and my picture would be in the press, I would still get that Frankie from Made in Chelsea. And it really used to... I know it's hard because I have to be grateful for obviously
the exposure
and I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if I hadn't done that show because it was just never something I don't think I would naturally have
put yourself forward.
Yeah, but if I was trying to rebrand myself, the advice I would give is obviously if you have a team around you, it's really important that you're all on the same page and that you can plan everything together. I think you have to be really clear with yourself about what you do and don't want and just make a plan moving forward that way.
You said you had a list of brands and you had a list of influencers that you kind of want to be associated with. Is there anything else you did, like in a practical sense?
In terms of on my actual Instagram, I just never spoke. Like when I would do those question boxes, I would always get asked about Made in Chelsea. Like, is it real? Like, are you going back? Until the last year, I have never answered anything or ever spoken about anything to do with that show.
Oh, interesting.
Just to take that away.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was like a weird thing in my head that I did, but...
Do you sometimes get grouped with Made in Chelsea still or like that's completely disassociated now?
No, I think it's gone. Not that it's a bad thing, obviously, but it was just so long ago and it feels like a different lifetime and it's obviously that's not what I do now and that's not my friendship group and
And your content now speaks a lot about motherhood after you've become a mother. Tell me a bit about that transition. That's another transition.
So that was a scary transition. So one thing I did once leaving Made in Chelsea and having like a really public relationship, another thing I wanted to do as an influencer is keeping certain things sacred because I hadn't had that before. So I stopped posting any relationships. I never posted my family. So I kind of kept that one thing separate. So when I got pregnant, I think I'd posted my partner maybe once. So I don't think many of my following even knew that I had a boyfriend. So I was really nervous to share this. And I also didn't know what it meant work-wise because I was the brands I was working with, like you guys, are quite like young London girls having fun, not so much mum vibes. So I was worried that I would lose some of those relationships I had, not relationships, but working relationships with the brands that I still wanted to work with. But I guess I just had to go for it because I was pregnant and I didn't have an agency at the time. So I didn't really have anyone to talk about it with or plan with. I just kind of went with it. And I was lucky in the sense that I still worked with the brands that I wanted to work with. And I purposely didn't go to mum, if that makes sense, because I didn't want to go over to just a mum influencer and only posting baby stuff. Obviously, it's harder now because everything I do basically revolves around Theo. And I do share a lot of him, but I make an effort I still share my outfits. And like, I wouldn't call this a mum outfit, anyone can wear this. I think I was also lucky because maybe the following that I'd had throughout my 20s were also, a lot of them were coming to that time where they were also having children. So it was really current and relevant for them. And then again, I got loads of new followers. And I feel like I've now got this huge mum community where I feel like all my followers are mums, but I don't know. I think that's because all the questions I get mainly are mum related.
What are the common questions you get asked?
I always get asked about like Theo's nap time, what's Theo eating for breakfast. Yeah, around Theo's routine is the main thing I get asked. I still get asked about fashion a lot. My fashion does really well on sort of like link clicks and stuff like that. So I still have that. And then skincare, makeup, jewelry. I still get asked about everything, but there is a lot of like interest in Theo.
When we spoke separately, you said you had a business degree and you always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I know your mom was an entrepreneur. Tell me a bit about your early years background and I guess your aspiration to becoming an entrepreneur eventually.
So growing up through school, I think we were sort of first introduced to business as a subject in maybe GCSE or A level. And I didn't not like school. Like I loved the sports, but I was never very academic at all. Like I wasn't stupid, but I never fell in love with the subject. I wasn't that interested in it until I did business. And it was the first subject that I was really passionate about, that I was excited about. And that's why I then went on to university to do it. I didn't have a specific of what I wanted to do, but I just knew. And it was something that my dad had always said to me. I think it was like, why make someone else rich when you can make yourself rich, or something like that. And it always stuck with me. And I just kind of thought, okay, I want to build something myself. So that's always kind of been my dream. And then obviously I fell into influencing and content creation. And now it's getting to that point. Again, I think because I feel like I've got so much more responsibility with having a child, I've got to think about the future, like what's next, and something a bit more long term and a bit more maybe safe, because I feel like with what I do now, it can be quite up and down. You never really know what's going to happen. There's always so much anxiety because you can have like a really great year and then you just never know what that next year holds.
I would say it's the same for owning a business.
Well, yeah.
A lot of ups and downs, uncertainty.
But Instagram could go in like a day, which is so scary.
Yeah, and so it's completely dependent on you.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's going to be something new. I mean, there's already TikTok, and you just, like in 20 years time, I need to have something. So that's what I'm sort of thinking about at the moment. And I found it really hard to figure out exactly what that is. And I don't know if this is common, but since having Theo, so he's 2.5 now, I found it really difficult when people have asked me, like, what are you really passionate about? So when I've been speaking to either my partner or my parents about wanting to do something and wanting to build something, they'll always say, yeah, but what are you really passionate about? And I could never answer that question. And I think it was maybe a combination of, I think when you're a new mum, everything becomes about your child, and it's really hard to even have the energy, the mental energy.
You just don't have bandwidth. You're tired.
I couldn't even think.
You just want to sleep.
Yeah, exactly. And so I could never really pinpoint what that is. But obviously now he's getting a little bit older, and different life events as well also can spring on ideas or make you passionate about something. So I've been thinking recently, and I've become quite passionate about the products we use and the things we're putting on our skin, the things we're putting in our homes, on our children's skin. So I'm learning about that at the moment, and then maybe something will come from that.
Ooh, watch this space. So a lot of our listeners are early stage entrepreneurs, brand founders. What would be your advice on them working with a content creator?
So my advice would be, I guess you've got to really look for people who align well with your brand. So when I start working with a new brand, I think it's really important to meet the team. I think I really struggled during COVID, when everything was so over email, like you couldn't see anyone and you never really knew who you were speaking to. And then when you finally did meet them, you'd walk into the restaurant and you'd have no idea who you were looking for because they're just a name on an email. Yeah. So I think it's really important to meet the influencer, meet the brand, see how you get on. Like I really value like good relationships, like even personal relationships with the girls who I'm working with or who are booking me. So with Sophie, who used to work with you, we had such a great, almost, like a friendship. Like we spoke outside of work, we got on, we hung out outside of working together as well. And I just think it's really important.
Yeah, that's so important, isn't it? At the end of the day, you're all human.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think all influencers are motivated by the relationship?
I don't know, to be honest, because none of my friends, so my sort of circle of girls now, they are the girls that I went to uni with. And then I've also now got obviously newer mum friends as well. But I'm not really friends with any other influencers. And in the sense that there's a few that if I see, I enjoy spending time with them, but I don't know them that well.
Is that deliberate?
I don't know. I think if I met someone I really got on with them, I wouldn't be like, oh no, you're an influencer, so I'm not being friends with you. I think it's just naturally how it's happened.
Yeah.
And especially, I guess, before COVID, more of my friends were in the same industry. But then COVID happened. Obviously, none of us saw each other.
Yeah.
Then I had a baby.
Yes.
And I'd stopped going to anything and everything. Not all influencers may think like that, but I just think it's really important because also, if they don't like you, they're not going to book you.
Yeah.
So
I think it's so important.
Yeah.
And the brand fit and the ethos and the values are so important.
Yeah. How do you guys choose who you work with?
I think we normally choose really organically. A lot of the times, like these influencers are our fans, so they'd be wearing, they tag us, and then if we like, their content and the look and their ethos and their personality, we'd contact them afterwards. So we want someone who genuinely is invested in the brand already.
Yeah.
Because like we have worked in the past, like huge influencers where an ad was their first touch point with the brand and it never works.
Yeah.
It needs to be super organic.
Yeah. I think that is becoming more and more important and brands are a lot more like that. I always say this, that it has changed so much, especially in the last maybe 2 or 3 years. You kind of, I don't know how to explain it in a way that doesn't sound bad, but like when I just come out of Made in Chelsea, I feel like you didn't have to work hard. There wasn't that many influencers.
Yeah.
There wasn't that much competition. Brands kind of just not threw money at you, but I feel like you didn't have to work that hard. It was we were just all very lucky.
Yeah.
Whereas now, there are so many influencers. The market is so saturated. It's so competitive.
Equally, I feel like a lot of brands are spending more money on influencers because
Yeah.
when we first started working with influencers, there weren't that many brands willing to invest, whereas now like huge brands are investing.
Yeah.
But then that becomes less organic, like at the same time, right?
But I feel like there's more money, but everything is so numbers driven. And if you're not hitting those targets or those numbers for those brands,
I agree.
You're not working together again.
And huge brands probably work like machines. They need to see the results straight away. Whereas I think influencer marketing doesn't really work like that. It's kind of top of the funnel in marketing. So you build awareness and then like people will eventually convert, but you don't know at what point.
Yeah, I think that's great that you guys think like that. I do think there are some brands that don't really think about the brand awareness and are a bit more like, well, we didn't see a return, so we're not booking you again, or we're not going ahead with next month's.
Yeah, I don't think that's the right way to approach it because influencers, you need them to be very organic.
Yeah.
If you want direct conversion, they'll be like a QVC salesperson.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, buy this right now.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. That's why I think it's so important as well, like the longer term partnership. And that's something I've sort of really been focusing on over the last few years, rather than just doing the one-offs.
Yeah.
Is like really pushing for those 3 or 6 month contracts, because even if it's a product that you use organically and you've posted it about it before, you really have to build that trust between you, the brand, and your following. That takes longer than just 1 or 2. Here's what I'm taking, or here's what I'm using, or here's what I'm wearing.
Are there any horror stories in working with a brand?
So about 2 years ago, I just had Theo, and a fashion brand approached me. And again, at the time I didn't have an agency, and they said, we really want to do an edit. At the time, it wasn't a brand that I would go into the shop and buy something from, but I had been to one of their events recently and they had all their clothes displayed and they looked amazing. They wanted to do this edit and I decided to do it. Originally, they sort of pitched it as, it's your edit, you sort of choose, blah, blah, blah. And then they give you maybe 10 dresses and you have to pick 5 from. So you're not really choosing. I don't know, you're choosing from a very small selection. And then the clothes came and they just were such bad quality. And I didn't feel good in them. You know when you wear something and it doesn't fit right and you just don't feel good. I don't know.
And it was completely different from what you saw in the showroom.
It was just like, the fabric was so different. I'd seen their brand in the showroom before and I'd actually done a job with them I think maybe the previous summer, I'd worn their dresses pregnant and I absolutely loved them. And I was like, oh my God, these are amazing. They're really affordable.
Yeah.
And I really love them. So anyway, yeah, this edit came through. I decided to do it. It was a very quick turnaround because I was going on holiday. So I literally had to shoot it. I think I didn't get to see the product until the day of the shoot. And then the next day I flew and the edit was going out like 2 weeks later. So anyway, I got to the shoot, I put these clothes on, I just didn't feel good at all. I didn't feel proud. I was not embarrassed, but I was just like, it just felt really wrong to put my name to these dresses and this edit that I actually just didn't really believe in and didn't feel good in, and I didn't want other people, I didn't know if other people would feel good in. I'd agreed to it, so it all went ahead. And I just felt it was such a horrible feeling afterwards of it going live.
Yeah. You felt like you were compromising.
I felt like I was compromising, but I also felt like I was letting my following down because I was like, this doesn't feel that real to me, or it doesn't feel that organic. And I've really tried to pride myself on just keeping my Instagram as real and organic as it can be. So that feeling that I got from doing that made me, and I then decided to myself, like, I'm never doing a job again that I don't 100% believe in or love or isn't already in my house. I always say that to my agent. I'm always like, if it's not in my bathroom cabinet, like my beauty cabinet or my
if you're
wardrobe,
not a customer already,
then I don't want to do it unless I think it's something that's exciting, and then I'll try it for a couple months and then we'll speak about it.
I think that makes sense because if followers are not stupid, they know. They know when it's not organic. They know whether you like it or not.
Yeah, again, and that's something that's really changed. It used to be a lot more, I feel like people would just sort of believe anything. And as in, I would follow someone and she said she used it, so I'm going to get it.
And some people are very good at selling. Right?
Yeah. Some people are so good at selling. But yeah, I think now people are just so much more aware and so much more cautious. And again, we're in an environment where people are also a lot more cautious with their money and their spending.
Yeah.
So they have to really trust you to purchase something.
Yeah. I love that you have integrity. What was the biggest mistake you made along the way?
So I think I'd say what I just said was probably one of my biggest mistakes. I haven't made anything huge. Another thing that I regret is, you know how I spoke about there was a period of time where you didn't have to work that hard, that jobs just sort of came in and whatever, and then it changed. And I feel like I didn't get on that change straight away, and I kind of sat back and didn't work that hard and things slowed down. So I'd say my mistake there was I wish I'd worked harder and been a bit more mature and a bit more aware and a bit more business minded.
Yeah. What do you mean by work hard? Creating more content or reaching out to more brands?
I guess a little bit of everything. I think being consistent with the content, producing like well lit, good quality content. I feel like there was a bit of a time where you could post a blurry picture and a brand would be like, yeah, that's fine, you know? That changed. Work should be competitive. It shouldn't, I wouldn't say work should necessarily be easy. And like most other industries are competitive, hard. You need to work hard to do well. So I feel like obviously it should have always been like that.
And consistency always comes up whenever I speak to content creators. How do you build in that consistency?
I find it so hard. I feel like that's part of my personality because I will be obsessed with one thing and then a few days later I'm over it and I'm on to something else.
I mean, that must be so hard.
So I do find it hard, and it's especially hard now having Theo and sort of balancing. We do have childcare just 3 days a week, but I guess it's just about planning ahead and having that sort of bank of content for those days.
Do you batch shoot then and spread it out, or do you like
Not
shoot
really.
every day?
I shoot. Again, I go through phases. Like at the start of the year, I was like, right, I'm going to build a bank of content so I can just, if I have a week where Theo's off nursery or whatever, I have all this stuff that can go out. And then as time's gone on, that bank has run out and I haven't refilled it. But yeah, I think because I like to keep it real and organic as possible, I find even things as like, if I shoot, say I've shot an ad and it's not going out for 2 weeks and my nails are different, that really bothers me because I'm like, well, I have no nail varnish on in this frame and then this video an hour ago I've got red nails. That really bothers me.
Yeah.
So I find it hard to like sort of pre-plan everything. And also if I shoot something and I don't post it for a couple of weeks, by the time it comes, I don't like that video.
Yeah, I totally get that. So are a lot of your content real time then?
Mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than obviously if it's a sponsored video, sometimes it takes time for the brand to approve it, or there's
Yeah.
edits, etc.,
Yeah.
etc. So sometimes that might be like a week or 2 weeks behind. In general, it's
Yeah.
within a
I mean,
day or two.
they definitely feel very organic.
Good, that's what I'm going for.
Knowing everything you know now, would you still go on the reality TV show?
I think this is a really hard question for me because I mentally found it very difficult when I was on TV.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it was really difficult. I think some personalities really thrive in that sort of environment and some just don't at all. And it just didn't, I just found it so difficult to get on board with. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like you have to be willing to not be a good person, if that makes sense, in those sort of shows, because they obviously need the drama. They need friends being not great to each other and relationships to be toxic, etc., etc. And I just could never.
Do they do that on purpose? Are some of them some of those fabricated for the drama, or are they really like that?
No, everything, not everything. I guess some things happen naturally, but a lot of situations are created purely for entertainment. But
That makes sense.
the people involved in those situations don't necessarily know who's created that, if that makes sense. So you don't know if it's the show that have done that, or if it's actually your friend or your boyfriend. Or
Wow, that's such a head fuck.
it was honestly so hard. And then you think that you're like really good friends with the producers because they're so nice to you, but then you know they're screwing you over. So it was a really difficult time. If I went back in time, it's really hard for me to say, oh, I wouldn't do that again, because obviously I don't know what I'd be doing if I didn't do that. But if I went back in time, I would maybe think of it as more of a job, and more, obviously they don't want you to think like that because they want it to be real. But
Yeah, I guess you kind of fell into it because of your relationship, so you're probably not ready for it.
And I feel like the guy that I was with at the time, he really thrived off of it, because to him it was just work, and he just saw it as that, so he didn't take it so personally or whatever. Whereas to me, it was my relationship at the time, or my friendships at the time, so I took everything so personally.
What's on your mind right now, and what's next for you?
I've just joined this new agency, which is very exciting. It's exciting to have a team around me again, because I obviously did it on my own for a couple of years, which was amazing, and I did love it because I love the business side of it. So this is why I think I want to do something more businessy, because I enjoyed that side so much more than being the influencer.
Interesting.
So anyway, I've joined this agency. I've got a great team around me. I guess it's just trying to think about how I can grow. Obviously, longer term, I've spoken about how I would love to build my own business. I feel like it's something that a lot of influencers naturally progress to, but it's just about figuring out the right thing. And
yeah, you guys have such a good base already, right? So you might as well leverage that.
But I think it's important to be aware that that doesn't mean you can sell anything. So it has to be a valuable or great product.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what about you guys? What have you guys got going on?
Oh, we have a lot. So we're opening a flagship store soon. So it's in Fubert's place in Carnaby. We have the vinyls up, and we're going to paint the whole building.
Yeah.
That's one huge project. We're expanding in the US. So we opened our West Village store in New York last year.
Oh, yeah. I remember this. Sophie did that, didn't she?
Yes. Sophie did that before she moved to Australia.
Yeah.
And then, we're looking at more stores along the coast. We're looking at LA and more stores in New York at the moment. So
I feel like you guys
would
do well in Australia.
I think so too. Logistically, it's a bit difficult, but that's what everyone says, because our head of product is from Australia.
Yeah.
And she's like, we need to go to Australia. She's pitching it every day to me.
I feel like Australia's fashion is just quite chic.
Yeah. And very effortless.
Yeah, it's quite simple.
Yeah,
and I
probably
feel like
very similar to LA, because like we resonate really well in LA.
Yeah.
In the US, LA is our biggest market.
Oh, really? Okay. So if you were to move to Australia, is that because obviously importing everything or exporting everything is...
It's just very far to travel. So the reasons are very simple. It takes 24 hours to go there, whereas like New York, it takes 7 hours to go get there.
And do you spend a lot of time there?
Yeah, I probably go once a quarter, but I've got a really good team that's always out there, and we've got a team on the ground.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting.
Amazing.
And European expansion is on the cards as well.
I was going to ask, is it just America, or are there other areas?
Yeah, so we're looking at Paris and Amsterdam at the moment, so fingers crossed.
I feel like Amsterdam would be really cool.
Yeah.
Or maybe like Copenhagen.
Yes, that would be really good.
Like the
as
cool
well.
Scandi
Yeah,
girls.
everywhere that we want to visit.
Yeah.
Is there something you had to let go in order to thrive?
This is probably something that a lot of influencers feel the same about, but it's just that sort of perfectionism of just like, it's really easy to get in a rut, to not be satisfied with the content that you created, and then you don't end up posting, and you kind of spiral. Right now, organic, real, messy content, I feel like does well. If something is too well shot, if it looks too professional or too produced, I feel like it doesn't do well. Personally, for me anyway, that's what I sort of see from my content. So I think it's just letting go of that idea of everything being perfect and just keeping it real and just being you, and also letting go of the control over the algorithm, because obviously as an influencer, you're constantly relying on that algorithm to work in your favor, and it just never does. And there's just no way of knowing like what's going to happen that day. You could work, it's really frustrating when you work, say you do an ad with a brand and it's a brand that you love and you've been trying to work with for months, and you finally get it, and you work really hard on this content, you plan it well, you film it well, and you're just excited for it to go live, and it goes live and the algorithm just doesn't pick it up. You just got to get over it and just keep going and hope that the brands understand that it really can go one of two ways. And that's another reason why I think when I work with brands now, I will always do organic content alongside the sponsored content, because sometimes even just putting the ad hashtag or tagging the brand, it can reduce your story views by like 10,000-20,000.
Oh wow.
So I always make sure I'm doing that extra where it's not tagged and it's not an ad, so that I can show, look, a week ago when I did the link for your brand without your tag and without the hashtag, it got, I don't know, 25,000 views, and the week that I did an ad, it got 15. Just so you have that data to show, which I think is really important.
Oh, that's so interesting. Well, thank you so much, Frankie. That was so inspiring, and I can't wait to see what's next for you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to follow the podcast wherever you're listening or watching. You can follow me at Connie Nam, Astrid Miyu at Astrid and Miyu, and the Unboxed Instagram page at unboxed_founder confidential. See you next week.